Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sian. Thank you so much, as always, guys, for taking the time to join me here to learn and to grow. As always, I'm truly grateful for all the support. And as always, I have a big request right off the top. If you get any value from this conversation, or if you have from other previous conversations, please do share it. Put a link on LinkedIn, put a screenshot on Instagram, send a text to a friend, message either myself or my amazing guest, MaryAnn, here to let us know what you took out of this conversation and how it helped you grow professionally or personally, because I think there's going to be so much value from this conversation that we're going to have. Before we jump in, I want to say a quick shout out to our friends at Figs for their support of the podcast and in the clinic as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I am wearing this lovely crew neck top, which is actually a scrub top, but honestly, I could wear it out. It's the Destin Formex material crew neck scrub top. It's a long sleeve if you're into long sleeves versus, the short sleeve scrubs that we usually see. Very comfortable, very stylish. And once again, thank you Figs for all the support. So let's jump into our conversation with our amazing guest, MaryAnn Klassen. MaryAnn, if you don't know her, has been around in the industry for a really long time, making an impact in so many different ways, has been working within the industry in the marketing capacity for 40 years, and has seen various specialties within our industry really bloom and emerge, starting with contact lenses in the early days, to the early days of AMD and supplements and treatments for AMD. And now for the last decade plus has been really entrenched in the dry eye space. And in particular is the creator of a very cool device called the Meivertor. So I'm very excited to chat with MaryAnn today about her extensive experience in the industry and right now the big impact that she's having for us in the dry eye space. So thank you, MaryAnn, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, MaryAnn, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of an introduction. I know I gave a really short bio there, but tell us a little bit more about these 40 years that you've been entrenched in the industry and what you've learned in that period of time. I guess you're going to have to give us the short version because that's a pretty big.
I'll give you the short version. So, right out of business school, I started working for CIBA Vision, and I was working in international marketing for them, which was really exciting. I got to do a lot of traveling. But what was very cool about the time that I spent there is the same time that J&J came in with the 7-day extended wear contact lens. And so the challenge to us as an industry and the challenge as a manufacturer was phenomenal. We were producing contact lenses that were lathe cut with a diamond, and along comes Johnson & Johnson and launches a wet molded product that costs about 35 cents, and ours cost us $5, and we were producing in Germany. So just that whole transition time of watching optometrists adapt to this new way of fitting contact lenses, and as a manufacturer having to adapt our own way of doing things, and ultimately coming out with dailies and night and day, two great products. When I left there, I went to Novartis Ophthalmics, and again, I was just coming in at a time when Visiodine was the first treatment for age-related macular degeneration. And again, I was blessed to be there, and such a great learning curve. The big challenge at the time in Canada is that optometry were referring all their patients to the retina specialist. And the retina specialist was holding their hands up and said, we can't see all these patients. So Novartis invested heavily in educating. And it was really impressive to see the optometrist move from, no, I'm not going to manage these people, to, I'm going to manage all the dry AMD patients. And now it's just a way of practicing that is done. And so we've seen that field evolve. And then I moved into the dry space. And as we know, in 2007 with DEWS 1, our whole perspective of dry eye changed. And so many years later, and 2 more DEWS reports, and we're still figuring it out. And we're still learning what this disease means for practices and for patients. So it's been a very exciting road as a marketer. And I love working with optometrists. So
I think your insight, well, that's nice to know that you like working with optometrists. I think optometrists are pretty nice people.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear, the perspective from non-OD, but I would say, in many, and I don't mean that demeaningly in any way, because I think the level of clinical knowledge that you have, it probably is, it's pretty on par with ODs at this point, how much time you spent in clinic and learning and trying to develop your product specifically for a clinical setting. You know, I know you like to say with optometrists, with eye care providers, not just for them. But I think the marketing side of things is such an important piece, that perspective that we all as optometrists need to hear more about, because we get so kind of like blinders on just in the clinic, like what am I going to do that's best for me right here in this little room? But to have somebody kind of look at it from a little bit zoomed out perspective of how the industry has evolved over the years, and kind of give us a little wake up call from time to time and say, open your eyes a little bit and see where you're heading here. You know, don't get too caught up in the little minutia of what you're doing. So I think there'll be some of those types of conversations or you know, pieces of advice that you'll have for us as we go through this conversation as well. So tell us about, let's start talking about the Meivertor. Let's start kind of the beginning of this conversation. Where did the idea even come from? And then we'll go through kind of that journey of how you got the idea and how you started to develop it and so on.
Sure. So interestingly, I was in a practice, I was in a clinic, and I was having my eyes assessed for dry eye. And I was sitting behind an Oculus keratograph. And beautiful piece of equipment, but boy, is that light bright. And you don't know how much that bothers you when you have very dry eye, as I do. And so the technician was trying to reach around the equipment. She was trying to avert my upper lid. She wanted to take an image of my glands, and she couldn't. She couldn't reach around and flip the lids using a Q-tip and focus the equipment on my eye, because it's just too much space to get around. Your arms aren't long enough. You need 3 arms to do it. So I'm sitting there thinking there has to be a single-handed solution to this. So I contacted who is a gentleman who's now my business partner, mechanical engineer, very creative, really able to visualize. And I said to him, I said, look, I just need one hand to do this. So can you please just develop something? And it was amazing. Within about 3 weeks, he came back with a rough prototype made with a 3D printer. And we started prototyping and going back and forth. And we reached out to Paul Karpecki, who is a fellow Canadian, as you know. And I said, Dr. Karpecki, can I bounce this off you? What do you think of it? So we sent him with the first prototypes, and he goes, that's a pretty neat idea. I really like it. So we went back and forth, prototype. And about 6 months later, we looked for some investors. And the investors said, well, how do I know this is going to work? I said, okay. Took it to the market, took it to 5 optometrists and 5 ophthalmologists, and asked them to try it on 20 patients each. And then we asked them, they came back and we asked them what they thought of it. And overwhelmingly, they agreed it was a great idea. It was very convenient. And from there, we just started taking it to the next step and to the next step and to the next step.
Amazing. I think your whole thought process there was really well thought through. Of course, let's see, a mechanical engineer seems like the perfect person to get in touch with. First of all, come up with some sort of a prototype, but then to reach out to somebody, you know, as well known as Dr. Karpecki, that's really amazing. And he specifically is all dry eye and like crazy busy. He's in Kentucky, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, in his dry eye center there, I remember when he came on the podcast and he spoke about the Meivertor. This was probably 2 years ago now, I'm thinking, right around 2 years ago. And, you know, he was talking about how great of a device it's been for them in their practice. But for somebody like that to test it out, that's, you know, you're going right to the top of the pyramid there, to get some really great feedback. That's amazing. So they came back with positive feedback. You thought, all right, I'm on to something. Now, what I'm really interested in is like, who do you contact for manufacturing? You know, you got in touch with the engineer. Wonderful idea.
Right.
He 3D printed some prototypes, but how do you start to decide on the material? And we'll describe the device, but you know, we're using our just forceps that we have in the office that plug right into the tips. You know, how did you come around? Is that the idea you had right from the beginning, or did you start off with one solid device?
We started with tips, because the whole idea, we were right in the middle of COVID. So recognizing that we had to have something that did not cross-contaminate. And also, so many of our patients with dry eye are women, and women wear a lot of makeup. So again, we had to create something that was hygienic and did not have to be cleaned. In terms of the material, we chose this is the Meivertor. I don't.
Yeah.
So these tips are silicone. So they're soft and comfortable. Silicone has a bit of a grip to it, like a stickiness. And when the engineer designed it, and this is where
Can you hold it like right up to the camera, perhaps? Like see if it there. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, that's excellent. There we go. So silicone tips. And so those who are listening, not watching, and you haven't seen this before, one tip on one side of the forceps is just sort of like it's kind of, is it rounded?
It's rounded,
just rounded. And the other side has a big semicircular shape to it.
Yeah. And so what that allows you to do is you're going to grasp the lashes and then rotate. And it's simply that motion that flips it over. And then what was unique about the design is he created a T on the end of it so that they fit in there. It's like a key, right? If you didn't have that, you turn and it's going to slip.
Right.
So it holds them. And then there's tongue and groove in the silicone in between, so that when you do come down on those lashes, it gives a nice, comfortable grip to the lash and then rotates over. Excellent. So I was impressed for something like, the weight of it, the way he created the roundness to make you could rotate it between your fingers so easily. I mean, it's quite a beautiful design. And Dr. Karpecki commented on that. He said, it's just the perfect weight to work with. So that was getting that ready. But once you get it ready, I mean, what truly helped me as an entrepreneur is I knew what the end goal was. I knew what I had to do to produce a product that had longevity and could be protected with a patent, and the kind of margins I needed in order to be able to survive selling the product, making enough money to reinvest and continually reinvest. So the journey really started out with things like, and the motto I sort of had for myself was one bend in the river at a time. Because if I went too fast, I'd become overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The first one was, can you get a patent? We got a US patent in record time.
That's awesome.
We're patented worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Our name is trademarked and registered. So I because I had done so much in corporate, I knew what had to be done.
So this is the type of stuff, this is excellent. This is the type of stuff that I think, and I'll speak for myself, but I know there's others out there like this. I would think just more clinical. Okay, I want to make sure it works clinically and that it's good to go. But that sort of business mindset from the beginning of getting the patent and getting the trademark and all of these things are such smart things to think about right out the gate, that really protect you in the long term and, hopefully will provide greater value to this company, to this product over time. Can you tell us a little bit about the patent process? Like, how is it a very complex thing? You have to get lawyers, and what does that look like?
Yes, you do. That is the one thing that takes a lot of money to get started. But yes, you need a patent attorney to guide you through the process. The engineer wrote the patent for the most part. We wrote it together, but the most important pieces, which is what gives us the protection, is the pieces that he wrote. And when we went for patent approval we started in the US, being the most significant market to start with. The patent office came back to us and challenged the patent and said, no, anybody could have done this. It's not unique.
Right.
And so we said, okay, well, how can we demonstrate to him how unique it is? And so we had already created our video. And so we sent him our video that showed how it was used on a patient, and Dr. Karpecki explaining, he does part of the, he's quoted in the video. And we talked about it, and he talks about what an important tool this is for technicians to have as a tool for meibography. And so it was that video that literally turned the patent office around and said, you know what, it is unique. And they gave us a patent.
That's excellent. That's very cool. I didn't think a video like that would actually have that kind of impact for the patent office. That's very nice to hear. And then beyond it, so you get the US patent, then how do you go about in other parts of the world to obtain?
And you file again in Canada, and then you file in Europe, and then you file in Asia. and each office is separate and each has its own costs of filing.
Is the process somewhat similar, or is it?
It's very similar.
Okay, good.
They say it doesn't matter if you have one patent already, but because the US patent looks globally to see if there's anything that has been similar has been filed or is active, then I would imagine you would look and say, well, it's been approved there. There must be something to it.
Right.
So once we got through that US hurdle, then one after the other, they just started coming in. And
so tell me about the name then. So trademarking the name, how did you come up with the name, and you want to come up with something that's kind of unique and wouldn't overlap with some other company or some other product out there? Did it come to you like right away, or did you have to think through different options?
This is kind of a funny story. And so one Saturday night, my husband and I are chatting about this idea and this product that I've created. And he goes, so what are we going to call it? And I said, well, why don't I call it the Meivertor? And he looks at me, goes, that's really dumb. You can't call it that. And he goes, tell me, what does it do exactly? And I said, well, we have these things called meibomian glands under our eyelids, and this everts the lid so you can look at them. And he goes, how about Meivertor? And I went, okay.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Go file that and get the website address filed. And he literally ran upstairs
right away
and registered the URL so we could own it. And he sent a note to our trademark lawyer, who we've used for other things, and said, you need to register this, do a trademark search. And it was that fast and that easy. So.
And then you have Meivertor.com, just like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And again, just being in business, right? It's nothing different than I would have done with any corporation. These are the steps you have to go through.
Right. But I love hearing those stories about how some ideas, because some of them are total, what's the right word? Like serendipity, right? Like luck, and just like a moment of just insightfulness that just kind of came about. But then in other times they're really thought through, and gosh, I went through this day after day and month after month and thousands of iterations. But I love to kind of know, how one came to their conclusion. Meivertor is such a great name because it says exactly what it does, or at least those who are in the industry will understand pretty much what it's about. And it's quick and easy to say. I think it's, well, perfect. Good for your husband for spitting that one. Also being willing to be very frank with you about the first option. I think you guys came up with a better option than your initial.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So this is really great. So you came up with the idea. I like that there was the initial pain point, which is what so many clinicians and so many patients, I'm sure, are still going through, of this, like, how do I reach around the machine to get this upper lid flipped over? I'm trying to use a Q-tip and so on. And then, okay, now I got the lid flipped. Now I got to get the machine like a video game. You're trying to play this thing. And that is a very, very common experience for many clinicians and technicians and patients. You took that, you got the idea, you put it into action with an engineer, you went through all this process. Now, okay, we got the device and we know it works because you've got the validation of not just Dr. Karpecki and others, but now dozens, if not hundreds of clinicians, I imagine, across the world. So what's next? Are we like, is this amazing? It's everybody's using it, or what? Is there still an obstacle here?
No, it is. There's real heavy lifting right now. Mm-hmm. So we've been in the market for 3 years, and I understand the resistance to it because it requires behavior change on the way the patients flow through the practice. Who's going to evert the lid? In North America, for instance, as we know, often technicians are tasked with this.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with many, many technicians since we launched this, and it's the same story. They're not comfortable getting close to the upper lid. So this tool allows the technician to do the task on intake. But that said, it's still, if you ask the majority of practitioners and ask them, what are you doing? They say, I'm using the lower lid as a proxy. And if I see something in the lower lid, then I'm going to send my patient back out for an upper lid meibography. But that is so inefficient because you've just pulled the patient out of the chair. You've got to get them back into the queue with the technician to have the upper lid. And more often than not, it's going to take 2 technicians to take that picture with a Q-tip. And so who can spare 2 technicians at once? And so the whole thing makes so much sense. But it still requires a change of behavior. And that takes an effort for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, that said, what I'm seeing, particularly in the United States and in Europe, because we are in multiple countries now, is that as the data comes out and is getting published, Dr. Karpecki and Priya Gupta, Dr. Gupta did a study that was published in Cornea that, again, supported the need to look at the upper lids. There's so much information there that's being missed that you're not seeing in just the lower lid.
Yeah.
And so I hope with time that as more and more people like yourself, Dr. Karpecki, and others who speak about the importance of this, that it will be adopted by more people.
Yeah. I'm sure you know this, having been in the industry for as long as you have. Optometrists are notoriously slow to adopt
Yes.
new things. Listen, there are times when we move quickly as a profession, but honestly, we are slower than others that, when it comes to bringing new technologies or adopting new procedures and things like that. Even something as simple as this, honestly, and I want to say it's very, very simple, because everybody's got forceps in their clinic, and you just basically got a little package of this.
But you have to use, you do need the handle, because if you use forceps, they're going to slip as you turn.
Oh, I got you. Right.
So we put them into,
you have you got the handle that comes with it. But I mean, it's as if you're using a pair of forceps.
Yes.
It's that simple. But you need the appropriate handle that will go in. But it is so easy. But you know what? The technician side of things is obviously, especially if you do a lot of dry eye, that part's important, because your technicians, I imagine for most people, are doing the meibography. But even in the exam room, and this is something Dr. Karpecki said to me last time when he was on, and that definitely resonated with me, is, I mean, we're all flipping the lids, we should be, in the exam room for various reasons, right? Contact lens wearers and other things. This just makes that process a lot easier too, to look under the lid for whatever reason you might be looking there.
Yes.
But it's valuable in the exam room and outside of the exam room as well. But yeah, I think it just will come down to slowly, as the adoption of any technology in the world, in society, is usually there's early, those early adopters, and then slowly more and more people, and then you kind of hit a tipping point, right? And then
Yes.
then there's sort of mass adoption. And I hope anyways, we're getting close to that tipping point now.
I hope so. Yeah.
Because this is sort of a no-brainer now. If without offending anybody, once you use it, you're kind of like, what was I doing before? So hopefully, as the word gets out there a little more, and I've seen it, I've seen it on social media as well, different clinicians that I know from around North America talking about it. And I love that, people who have a bit more of a social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good to see. So hopefully we'll get more and more talking about it. And as we see in these DEWS reports, as you talked about, the importance of looking at all the glands, we'll value that upper lid a bit more over time. What else? What other things do you want to share with our colleagues, about this and about dry eye, what you've learned from other clinicians just through your experience?
I just do want to touch on that point you made with Dr. Karpecki and how he uses it. We are having people tell us that this is really a technician tool for meibography, because typically that is where the patient's being imaged, right? On intake, ideally on intake. But in the lane or the exam room, what people are telling me is foreign body removal is a big one, especially, I mean, there's some people, if their practice is close to a construction site or so on, they're seeing 10 people a week coming in with foreign body need to be removed. So there's that. Dr. Karpecki uses for concretions, lid wiper epitheliopathy, so you don't mess up the dye on the lid margin. If you're trying to use your fingers and you're just removing the dye and smearing it, that doesn't help. And also, as you pointed out, for contact lens assessment and scleral lens fitting. Although every time you flip a lid, it keeps one hand free.
Yep.
And so it really is ideal for that as well.
Absolutely. Anytime you might need to get that upper lid out of the way, it's just a easy use case for the device.
And I have to say that I've been through this behavior change requirement in a number of cases, moving from regular contact lenses to daily disposables or 7-day extended wear to daily disposables, and then back to 30-night extended wear lenses. And the fact that optometrists, they're open to it. And that's what I love about it is they certainly give us a challenge. As you've said, they're not the fastest moving, but when they do move, And what I say to a lot of, and when I'm speaking to people and training them in marketing, I said, the one thing about this audience that I appreciate is if you give them a legitimate reason and you support it clinically, optometrists are very supportive of that.
True.
And they're very brand loyal.
To help hopefully cool down some of my colleagues who are listening and getting mad at me for calling them slow adopters, I will say one thing to our credit as a profession is we are, for the most part, we love learning. We love to grow. We love to always like take in, anytime somebody says, well, there's this new development and this new treatment protocol, we love learning about it. And we are a very supportive profession in general. We really like to help one another and others in the industry. If you come out with a new idea like this, and you present it, you're generally going to get, very positive feedback in the sense of like, how can I help you? But there's still that somehow mental obstacle of like, let me just, we don't want to disrupt our flow that we've got going on, right? Feel like everything's
I totally
really efficient.
understand that. It's a fine science when you watch a clinic flow well.
Yeah.
And to ask a technician to do something they're not comfortable with. Now, that said, that those who do adopt it, the feedback I get from the technicians and how good they feel about themselves.
Could
wow,
you share, MaryAnn?
Doctor. Yeah.
Could you share any insight if you have about clinics that have started to use the Meivertor and have adopted its implementation? Any insight from those, like what they did? Was it just that they just bit the bullet, set aside some time for training? Was there something else that they might have done that you think might have helped?
I think it was, in many cases, when I look at my conversation I've had with people at the booth, for instance, at trade shows, and when the technicians come up, and they are the most enthusiastic, I have to say, because they'll come running over and they'll say, oh, I've been looking for your booth. Oh, wow, tell me. And they handle it and they try it. They say, I got to find my doctor, as everybody calls them, my doctors. I need to go find my doctor. And once they try it, like literally some of them do it on the first try. I say, do it on me. Here, take it, do it. And they can flip a lid so quickly and they're so pleased with themselves. They take pride in it. And I think that's the big thing, is allowing the technician, entrusting them with this and saying, I need these images in order for myself to do a good diagnosis of this patient. And without it, I might be missing something. And so if I need you to do this for me because I can't fit it into my time frame.
Right. And
entrusting them and empowering them to take it on, I think is very significant.
Yeah.
And I think most, again, there's all different types of people, but there's got to be at least one person in each practice that is really interested in learning and doing more with the job they have. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, speaking for our own practices, we certainly have that. Generally, again, optometrists love learning new things, but I would say, in my experience, staff love it too. Technicians and optometric assistants, they love, give me something new, give me something exciting. It just keeps everything fresh. Everybody's growing. So something like this, I don't imagine, of course it's going to take time to do the training, but I can't imagine somebody, as far as technicians, being resistant to learning something new that can help them be better at their job, be more efficient. Something just from, if I could share from our side, I think one thing that I always struggled with was setting aside the time for training for anything, whatever new thing it might be that we're bringing in. And somebody helped me kind of get over this last year, a year or so ago, about doing just setting, like really, as I said, biting the bullet and prioritizing training over everything else. And things have drastically changed in our clinics since then. So we do weekly meetings, which we always wanted to try to get somewhere near doing weekly. But I just decided it's now going to be a priority. I'm blocking an hour of patient time every single week, just so we can all sit down together and discuss or go through whatever it is that we need to do. And then every few months or so, we'll sit down and we'll do some sort of hands-on training. So we recently just did advanced dry eye training like a week or two ago in our clinic with the doctors. There, again, so many applications for this type of stuff. There are new devices coming out, which I'm going to be talking about on the podcast in coming episodes here as well, that I think will be really relevant. to the Meivertor as well, where we are actually treating the inside. We're treating the palpebral conj with these devices, and you need to obviously flip the lid for that.
Yes.
Again, where the Meivertor could be potentially valuable. So, the training aspect, going back to what I wanted to say here, is so important. Anybody out there who's kind of hesitant to set aside time for training, it'll be you'll see the value come back multiple fold once you start setting aside the time, whether it's training on phone calls, whether it's training on sales or marketing or devices like this. Take the time, set aside that time, prioritize that above even patient care. And I think you'll find, it's super, super valuable. And then all of a sudden the implementation for things like this becomes much easier.
Yeah. And also for those practices that sent their technicians for some of these one-day training events that My Dry Eye is doing. They did one in Toronto and they did one in Calgary. Right. Dry Eye Summit, those types of places. The Meivertor has been given to the technicians for that course so they can practice with it. So they've already had some hands-on with it. Very good. The other thing is, if a practice does have difficulty with it, they just can't quite get it, then we will Zoom in and do a Zoom connection with them and walk them through how do you use it, how do you place your hands, how do you go into the patient with the right angle, all those things. It takes 15, 20 minutes of our time to really just walk them through. So we're happy to do that with any practice that buys the instrument.
That's great. That's super helpful too, to kind of get over that little hump.
Again, as a marketer, what's been so helpful for me is the willingness of optometry to showcase themselves on social media. And as you say, we've got some who people just posted themselves. So we had our instrument was used by Meivertor. Have you heard of Meivertor? It's like
I've heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've had 2.5 million views.
Oh wow!
For a Meivertor and
That's
a Meivertor photographer. So people are interested in eyes.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to me.
That's incredible.
We've got, I think we have now 3,000 or 4,000 followers.
That's awesome.
Who would think of that with an instrument?
Right.
But people are interested. People are interested in unique devices, and optometrists have really helped us get awareness and understanding. We're now in multiple countries around the world, and we're seeing things coming back from the Netherlands and from France, and we've just launched in Portugal.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's really great to see. And I think that's just the natural evolution of something that works, right? This is what you see. Like when I've talked to other people who have created a product or a service, that is just naturally what will happen when it's good. Is you do have to keep doing your own marketing, but this term UGC, user generated content, becomes really key to that, to propelling the product and the marketing and the social media and all this. It becomes core to that, because now it's, you don't have to ask people to post about it. People just post about it because they like it. And you'll see that happen with all sorts of products, usually the ones that are good. So it's really cool to see that happening. And I think that's going to continue to happen more as social media just becomes more of the norm in general. So, you'll have clinicians out there who are influential clinicians, but they're not really on social media. So they're going to use their own means to kind of tell others about it. But as the average age of clinicians sort of shifts here, you'll start to see more and more of these younger clinicians who are very present on social media start to talk about it without you even asking. So that's really good to see. Really good. MaryAnn, where can people learn more about you and the Meivertor?
Well, the best place to learn is the website, which is meivertor.com. And that Meivertor.com. And there we have a lot of resources, not just, yes, you can buy the product there, but also if you need to be convinced that the upper lid matters, we have a lot of resources posted there that talks about the science and the data behind it. We've got some great clinicians that have authored these articles from different countries as well. And so there's that. There's also a lot of our posts are there and testimonials from your colleagues who have told us what they think about the product and where it fits into their practice. So there's a lot of information there to look at. And of course, to purchase the product, we ship directly out of that site to Canada and the US.
Perfect. And then for yourself, if somebody happened to want to connect with you just to say hello?
You could do MaryAnn at Meivertor.com.
Perfect.
Any questions? I'm happy to help out.
Yeah, wonderful. LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'm LinkedIn both under Meivertor, but also my personal account.
Wonderful. Perfect.
Yeah. And Instagram and Facebook, yeah.
And Instagram and Facebook as well. Perfect. You're all over the place. That's what we want. That's what we want. This is why I'm saying, if you get some value, go on LinkedIn and tag MaryAnn, tag Meivertor. If you're on Instagram, put a screenshot, tag us there, both of us. Let us know what you took from this conversation. Again, I love these entrepreneurial conversations. They're very inspirational, right? Because there's so many of us who are sitting, we're in the shower, we're driving, we're sitting at home, we're sleeping. All of a sudden we have this like thought in our head, oh, this is an interesting idea for a device or something that we could maybe offer. But who am I to put that together? How am I going to go about doing that? Well, when we hear somebody like MaryAnn or some other person who came up with an idea and brought it to fruition, we can start to see it's doable. There's obviously a lot of hard work involved, but it's doable. And I like to hopefully, maybe we can inspire one person out there to create something, something new.
I think you make a really, really good point, because I was at a trade show in the US once with the Meivertor, and a gentleman came up to me and he said, I thought of a similar idea. I knew we needed something like this, but I didn't have the courage to do it and bring it to market. And I admit it is a lot of work. It really is more work you can imagine. And it's a daily, you don't ever stop thinking about it. But would I do it again? Yes, yes, and yes. I love it. I love my own business. And I still work in the industry. As many of you know, I still work full time in the industry, and I do this business on my 2 days.
In your free time, quote unquote, free time.
As many people do in your industry, right?
True.
There's many an optometrist who is clinic all day, educating at night, doing all these things. So it's that is another trait of optometrists I find interesting. We are sort of gluttons for punishment in that sense, right? We always want many of us anyways, this is not true for everybody, of course, but like having a very full plate, myself included. So I'm always walking around telling people I'm going to cut back this year. And now I've said it enough times that people look at me like side eye, like, okay, sure. Yeah.
Well, truthfully, MaryAnn, I'm actually trying to cut back this year. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll see.
We'll check this time next year.
Yeah. Okay. So I told you right before we started recording that I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I traditionally ask on the podcast that are a bit more personal. I didn't tell you what questions they are, but I'll ask you them now. And I think they're really both important questions for somebody who's gone through this entrepreneurial journey, but you certainly are more than welcome to reflect on any part of your life to answer these questions. So the first question I like to ask is, if we could go back in a time machine to a point in your life that was particularly difficult, you're welcome to share the experience if you like, but you don't have to. And more importantly, I'd like you to share, what advice would you give to yourself in that moment?
Wow. Well, like anybody, I've certainly had my difficult points in my life. One of the things that I guess I was taught growing up, my parents, I'm first generation Canadian. So my parents came after World War II from the Netherlands and immigrated to Canada with no money, and soon had 5 children. So one of the things that was expected is that you don't ever give up. So if you've made a commitment to something or to someone, then you don't walk away from it. And that's probably what has given me a lot of staying power in my life, is to say no. I knew what I was getting into. I walked into it. And now, because it's getting tough, I can't walk away. And so it works in a lot of different situations. And I've always taught that to my daughter as well, to say, I know you don't feel like going now, but did you make a commitment? Yes. Okay, then you have to go.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
love
probably
that.
a big one for me.
That's huge. I think we call that grit, or at least that's one term we could use for that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. No, that's wonderful. That the tough times, sometimes you have to remind yourself why you started in the first place and keep pushing through. That's really great.
Yeah.
The second question that I like to ask, second and final question of the podcast, is everything you've accomplished to this point, how much of it would you say is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
It's all hard work. I'm not a believer in luck. I think your goal affects your behavior, and so it's all hard work, but it's
It's all
worth
hard
it.
work. Yeah.
It's all hard work.
Got it. Thank you, MaryAnn. I appreciate this. Any final words of wisdom you want to share? Anything we forgot to talk about or missed that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
The upper lids matter. That's probably
There's
the big
one
one.
takeaway from this conversation. Yes. And now we have a tool that helps us examine them much, much more easily.
Yes.
The upper lids matter. Thank you, MaryAnn. I really appreciate the time. Appreciate all the effort that you put in and all the impact that you've had on the industry so far, and I imagine much more to come still.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, I want to say a big thanks again to our partner Figs. In the beginning, I forgot to share my code. So once again, if you're watching, I'm wearing this Formex crew neck Destin scrub top, full sleeve, but honestly just looks like something you could rock with a pair of joggers or jeans. It's pretty comfortable. If you're looking to pick up anything from Figs, you can use my code Harbir S First Figs. That's Harbir S First Figs, and knock off a few bucks off your first order. So thanks, Figs. And thank you to everybody who has taken the time to listen and watch to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I'll see you guys in the next episode.